Alrighty, guys, we're starting a minute early because I think I'm going to have a lot to say about these games. These are the best of the best of the best. And let me switch my background out there. So, back to what our normal one is. There we go. So these are going to be probably a longer episode, and even though it's the same number of games, 20 games, there's a lot to talk about when we talk about these games, especially with the number 1 and the number 2, and you'll see why when I get to that, why I have to talk about them for a little while. So it's amazing. We are down to the very last episode, 20 games tonight, done and over with, all 100 games for 2025, and it feels like a huge weight off my shoulder. As I've said multiple times through this series, last year we spent over a month doing it with Phoenix Knight and Higher Ground Gaming and having a good time and chatting and talking about it and seeing what we do and seeing what crossovers we have and all that, which is a great and awesome time. It was just such a burden, though, just waiting for it every week and every week and every week, and it just dragged on and dragged on. And this year I decided to do it early and get it done in 5 straight days, and I knew it was going to be a huge undertaking. Absolutely huge undertaking, and I did it, and I'm very happy that we're now in that spot where, okay, we got last episode and we can write this off as completed and done. So let's get to our top 20 games of all time. This is it, final edition. My number 20 was actually number 132 last year. This is a great game. Very similar to Terra Mystica, very similar to Age of Innovation, but uses a space theme. I never really understood much about this, but I played it a couple times in Board Game Arena, and then me and Phoenix Knight played this multiplayer together, and I started to learn a little bit more about it because it is slightly different than the other systems with the Gaia projects and some of the mechanisms that I just couldn't wrap my head around. Now that I wrap my head around them, yes, we're talking about, of course, Gaia Project, my number 20. So it dropped a whole bunch down, all the way down from 132. Now, with that said, it's probably going to be bumping way back up because the expansion was released this year, and I was not a big fan of the expansion. It just added way too many complexities to the game and didn't really make it any more fun or any more interesting, to be honest. So I don't foresee this going to stay in the top 20, but it is a super good civilization building game with an awesome AI system, and it definitely has lots of different factions to play, which I'm very excited about. And it's very good to see that it got all the way down to number 20. It is a really cool game. We did play it quite a few times. Actually, I will tell you that we played it. Let's do a search for Gaia. And we played it 4 times, which is pretty reasonable for the length of this game and the complexity of this game. It is a medium weight Euro game with a lot of interaction actions is what I'm going to say. So sometimes you'll be like, do this to gain like 3 money, so the next turn you can do something else that'll give you another action, and kind of like really trying to min-max what you can do with your precious resources. So Gaia Project, not a bad one. Again, the expansion, just not a big fan of. Maybe I'm missing something. I probably should try it again at some point. But I know Phoenix Knight played it, and I have to go on Phoenix Knight's recommendation because he knows more about Gaia Project than me, and he didn't like the expansion either. So my number 20 for 25, though, is going to be Gaia Project. Number 19 for us is another brand new game. In fact, the next 2 are our last 2 brand new games to the list this year, and they made it all the way up in the top 20. That's how good these games are. My number 19 is a Marvel game, but it's kind of on the lighter side, and it has tons of different characters. They now have an X-Men expansion, so that'll give you a bunch of different things. It's a very interesting system where each of the characters has a certain number of cards, and you shuffle those cards together and play them out. And of course, I'm not talking about Marvel Champions. I'm of course talking about Marvel United. It's my number 19. We played it for the first time this year. We played it. How many times do we play Marvel United? 4 times as well. So, I mean, not a ton, but I do like the fact there's tons of different characters, tons of different enemies. Very simple system for the solo mode. But still gives you enough variety. I know we played one mission. It was extremely hard. The boss seemed like he just decimated us. So we tried a different boss and had a much better time with it. So, I mean, there is a little bit of that where sometimes you just don't get good combos. It is very easy to learn this system. You're basically playing a card down, and then it's going to have actions on it to either attack or move or inspiration or maybe some special ability that character is known for. And then that card will stay on the playing field, and so the next hero that plays a card will activate the card in front of it and his card. So you're getting these combinations or trying to build up these combinations. It sounds more important than it really is. But it is kind of a cool mechanism, but you only get to do like one card in front of it. So like after you play the first card, then the second card will only work for the third card, and then the third card will only work for the fourth card. So you only get to play one card in front of it, and there's not a whole lot of combinations that you can do because you're only doing fighting, moving, inspiration, and like maybe a special ability on some of the cards where you'll have some special abilities on them. It's very kind of, I would say, light on the rules, light on the gameplay, but it gets to the table fine. It plays in about 45 minutes to an hour. You can play it solo great, and it does what it's trying to do and does it pretty good. And there's a ton of different characters. I mean, I've bought a couple of the expansion packs, and I've got a whole box of characters now. So it's just you just have a ton of stuff. And I know that they have released the next season for Marvel United is going to include like the DC universe. I think they're starting to go into the DC United or something. So they're using the same system for those heroes as well, because I think they pretty much used the whole Marvel universe up. There is a lot to do with this game, and I think I've watched some videos online where they show like there's like a campaign that you can go through and take different characters out, and as you beat the different villains, you earn special reward, which is kind of like a player created thing. I don't think it's like a official thing. I could be wrong because I haven't done it, but I just haven't played it enough to really delve into it fully. But my number 19 is Marvel United. Great variability with the heroes. Just plays it pretty quick. Have a good time, see all the different heroes, and play solo. My number 18 is the last brand new game to the list, and it is a huge, mammoth, undertaking, role-playing, campaign, fantasy game. I'm just going to show you what it is, because if I just talk about it, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's going to be the Hex Explorer system. I'm going to be putting all the Hex Explorers into this. I'm not separating them. This one just happens to be the Forest of Arkham, since that's the most recent one that me and Mike played online. And we had a really good time. Let's see, how many times did we play Hex Explorer this year? We played the Forest twice, and we played the other one twice. So, like, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. We got 4 or 5 good sessions in, and this is one of these things that, yeah, you can spend a lot of effort playing and a lot of effort getting the pieces and all the packs, and just the main box is like, I don't know, $90 or $95, and then you got several expansions that go into each season, and there's like 5 seasons. And I also bought the campaign books, which are like 600 to 800 page campaign books. It is definitely a game that would give you hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours to play through. There are many, 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 many different kinds of characters, races, different traits that you can have. So every kind of character you can make is very interesting. There's a very good app that'll keep track of all your hit points and all your equipment you have. Otherwise, you have like these player boards that are dry erase, and you're keeping track on that as well. It's a really good with a really good artwork. You can see the artwork is fantastic artwork. It definitely has a fantasy theme. The main thing is you're moving around trying to complete different objectives and different quests and defeat different enemies to power yourself up, because eventually the time will run out where the big boss will come after you. And in the first campaign, it's all about the undead lich that will come after you. He's destroying all the different towns and running around doing all that. Once he destroyed all the towns, he'll come after you. In this one, the Forest of Aeon, she is putting out the Sentinels, and the Sentinels will try to destroy the towns or infest the towns with her power. And so you have to find where her lair is and get over there before all the Sentinels kind of destroy the towns. Every season has its own theme. This one is all about the forest, and you have vines and fruits and different flowers that have different special abilities that you're trying to earn as rewards, and you're trying to do all that stuff. The next season 3 is like a deserty environment where you have like an Egyptian theme with scorpions and stuff like that. And then the 4th season is all about werewolves and vampires. I really want to get that one as well. So it's a huge system, monster system with monster cost once you get everything. But you can get one season for a pretty reasonably price, and it's going to give you, like I said, it's going to give you hundreds of hours just in one season, and there's 5 seasons already out with different themes. So get the theme that you like. It's a great game. You can check out my playthroughs. I'm sure lots of other content creators have playthroughs, so check it out if you're not familiar with this game. It is Forest of Aeon is part of the Hex Explorit system. My number 18, and the last new game on the channel. Every other one of these games you've seen before, you've watched before, you've heard the things I've said about these things. So we'll get into them and talk about them right now. My number 17 was number 63 last year, so it's dropped about 15 spots, about 45 spots actually. It's because it is a really great game that I really never knew much about and never really played. I occasionally played. I just kind of resisted playing it. I heard it was like the number 1 war game of all time at some point, and then I'm like, it's not really a war game. Of course, the game I'm talking about is Twilight Struggle. The reason it jumped all those spots is because we played it couple times and we started to figure out what we're doing. Now, we did play it online digitally, which helps with the setup process, and playing it two-handed is just not as good. But learning it is great with the digital, because you can sit down and finally figure out how things operate and what things do. And it took me the longest time to wrap my head around this. It's been a while since I played it, to be honest, and I would probably have to get refreshed because it's a very simple system that's very hard to remember, because there are slight variations between domination and presence and how things move from one area to the next. And it's a war-themed Euro game, I guess. I'm not sure. You're going to be trying to put tokens on different areas on the map. You're also going to be trying to coup areas. You have a space track race, and you're trying to move up the space track as fast as you can. And it's basically the U.S. versus Russia in the Cold War. And everything you do as the U.S. is to put stuff on, and then each of the cards is an event, or it has a certain number of points, but you have to play all the cards in your hands. So you might have some of your opponent's cards, so you're trying to figure out like when is a good time to play that card, because you don't want to give your opponent, the best, like if I play this card and it says do all these great things, you don't want to use that if he can use it to its maximum. A lot of cards will have a prerequisite, like, oh, you have to have 2 influence in this country to activate this card. And so you play it because your opponent doesn't have 2 influence. That's where the whole mechanism is. You're trying to minimize and maximize your cards while minimizing what your opponents can do with the cards you have for them. And of course, there's also scoring cards, so you'll have the scoring cards in your hand. So now you're trying to decide, okay, if I play this scoring card right now, I might earn 1 point. But if I wait till later in the turn, I can play this card, then maybe I can earn more than 1 point. So do I wait? And then do I wait and my opponent might know that I have the scoring card and try to make sure I get less than 1 point. So there's that whole battle and structure of trying to figure out when the best time to play the cards. It has been in the top 5-10 games of all time for the longest time, for years and years and years. People love this game. I think GMT has printed 8 or 9 editions of this game so far, and they're just printing in this year, 2025, they're printing the 20th anniversary or 25th anniversary edition is coming out this year. So it's been out for a long time. People really love this game. It's easy to teach, easy to learn, easy to play, but hard to master, because you're always trying to figure out how are you going to get these terrible cards. But the thing you got to realize is your opponent has a terrible hand too, because he's got to play your cards as well. So it is a mind game of mind games, and that's why I think a lot of people really like Twilight Struggle. My number 17, up a whole bunch of spots from number 63. And the last, number 18 was the last new game on the channel. So number 16 was number 54. So it's come up a whole bunch. And this is going to be, I'm just going to talk about what it is. It is Arkham Horror, the card game. The reason it's jumped up a bunch is I actually played this game several times with Phoenix Knight online. I've been telling him for all of 2024, you need to teach me this game. You need to teach me this game. So we've played it a couple times. I understand it a little bit more. I understand the concepts, and I got some of the campaign boxes ready to go for 2025. I've got the Dunwich Horror. We played through a few of the scenarios at the beginning. He's had me on his channel. I've had him on my channel. We've played together. And so it's just come up a whole bunch because I played it a lot. I understand. I appreciate it a little bit more. There's a lot of strategy. There's a lot of mystery. If you enjoy the Cthulhu mythos, you're going to love this game. If you enjoy card games and the stories and campaigns are exquisitely done by Fantasy Flight. A lot of time and effort goes into each and every season. I think they have somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 or 13 different seasons now. It's crazy how many seasons they have. But it's great because it gives those players that are interested in this game, which are a lot of people. I know this game here, Arkham Horror, the card game, is several YouTubers' #1 game of all time, and it mightn't even be Phoenix Knight's #1 game of all time. It is a lot of people's #1 game of all time. A lot of people that I know, because it's got a great card play. It's got a really good interaction with the game system. It plays perfect solo. You can run 2 characters, 3 characters, 4 characters, how many characters you want to play. Each scenario lasts anywhere between 30 minutes to an hour, depending on the length of the scenario. And this is one of these games you can sit down and play through. And the campaigns, every campaign's different. As you progress through the campaigns and play mission 1, then you're going to have outcomes that are going to dictate how things will go. And if you'll get bonus cards or you'll be penalized and all that. It is a super involved campaign system that is so easy to play, and like I said, it's an all-time favorite for many people out there. I really do enjoy this game. I ranked it 54 last year because, again, I didn't play it very often and I didn't appreciate what it's trying to do. And this year I got the chance to play it a little bit more. I forced Phoenix Knight into playing it with me several times over and over again until I got a little bit better grasp of how to play it. And in fact, I need a refresher, Phoenix. If you're watching this, it's time to get this together, play another mission so that I can I'm going to try and get through a whole campaign cycle. I bought that as well as the Lord of the Rings cycle. I've gotten several of those cycles. I got several of the Arkham Horror. And so this year, 2025, is all going to be about the LCG and reliving and replaying the Fantasy Flight LCGs. And this one, Arkham Horror, the card game. Great game. Awesome. Beautifully well done. Well thought out. And like I said, just a lot of fun to play. And it doesn't take up much time. And again, as a mostly solo player, yes, I play some face-to-face. And yes, I do go to conventions and play with my buddies usually once a year, so I do some face-to-face gaming, but 90% of what I do every year is solo, so anything that plays solo and has a great solo mode, I mean, it's got to be high on the list, and that's Arkham Horror, the card game. Where are we? Number 15. Number 15 was, we've already seen number 2 fall. We've already seen number 6 fall back down into the 20s. This game was number 3 last year. So number 2 last year was Legendary, a Marvel deck game, a deck building game. And number 3 last year was Dune Imperium. And so we're going to have a new 2 and a new 3, at least minimum this year. We're going to have at least a new 2 and a new 3. The reason this fell, it only fell from 3 down to 15, which, is not a lot in reality. Every one of these games in the top 100 is awesome and beautiful and great. And I would probably play any of these games at any time. Some of them are a little more my style, so I obviously will tend to play those more. This is an awesome game, and another game just like Arkham Horror, the card game. Dune Imperium would be number 1 on many people's different top 100 lists. It is that good. It is a deck building competitive game that has a very good specific AI system. There are several expansions you can get for this game. It is Dune inspired, so if you're familiar with the universe, great. I had no idea about any of this stuff. But after playing this game a couple times, I got online and I actually watched videos on the Dune universe. And so now I actually know what a Bene Gesserit is, and I actually know what the Fremen is, and I actually know. Now I have not even watched the Dune movies. I'm still waiting for the right time to play those movies. I'm waiting for the right time to get them and play them. So I have not even watched the movies yet. Dune, and I have a feeling if I watched the movies, this game wouldn't even be higher on my list because this game relates to real life then, or relates to things you know about. For me, I have no idea when I first started playing this game. It got all the way up to number 3 last year because I played it a bunch, multiplayer AI. Now this year, I got some of the expansions and didn't play it as much. And I'm sick and tired of saying this. Dune Imperium, I played it twice in 2024. I'm sick and tired of saying this as an excuse, but every single game out there that's getting expansions, I play less and less because it's just more to get out, more to set up, it's just, more to try and learn, more. It's the days of expansions going, hey, here's the game, and we're just going to give you more cards or more factions or more events or more things to do. No. Every expansion's got to change the rules and add sideboards and add different tracks. And it's driving me absolutely insane. And that's for a video for probably tomorrow. Because it's not Dune Imperium's fault. It is the Dune Imperium's expansion's fault. I played it less with the expansions because, again, I've got 2 sideboards I need to deal with now. 2. One sideboard, okay, fine. That's not that hard. You've got a bunch of technologies, but then they got this other trackboard from, I think it's the Rise of Ix, where you're trying to manipulate how much of the green goo, I forget what they called the green goo, and you're trying to get the green goo to move up the track so you can get special abilities and do certain things and blah, blah, blah. Absolutely 100% unneeded for this game. All it did was bog it down and make it way too complex for what it's trying to do. I enjoy base Dune Imperium the best. And that's probably another reason why it fell down to 15. When I played it this year, I'm like, where's the fun that I had from 2023? And I had fun, but I didn't have as much fun. And I think it's because it had those expansions. So the reason it fell out of the top 5, the top 3 games of all time for me is just because, number one, I didn't play it as much because I wasn't as happy with it because of the expansions. That's as simple as it is. I hate to say that because it's an awesome, awesome game. There's so much strategy. The AI actually does a really interesting, pretty good part. And this is one of these games you only play to 10 victory points. So every victory point is tight. Like you're scrapping for every single point, which is, that's kind of the Dune universe, is everyone is fighting for their life in there and scrapping to get what they can get ahead of all the other factions. So Dune Imperium is a great, super great game. It is an all-time classic. Many people will be in the top 2 or 3 or maybe top 1. But for me, didn't have as much fun in 2024. I will definitely play it in 2025 a couple more times. Maybe once with, maybe once without the expansions, just to see, what if I could. Now, I know they released Dune Imperium Uprising, which is a standalone upgrade to Dune Imperium. I don't own that game, so I can't put it on my list. I don't know if it fixes some of these problems. I might have to look at it and find out. But my number 15 right now, and I have a feeling, depending on how things go this year with it, it could fall a bunch more. We'll see. Which is a darn shame because this was number 3 in 2024. All right. Next up is number 14, and I think if I look through my list, this might be the highest sports game that I own. So if you're one of my sports fans out there, it was number 17 last year. It's number 14, so pretty gosh darn close to where it was last year. Maybe up just slightly. And the reason it's up just slightly is because I got a desktop program that runs this. And also the cards for the boxers were re-released in tarot-sized cards. Of course, I'm talking, if you're familiar with what I'm talking about, of course I'm talking about Title Bout 2. So the upgrades to Title Bout 2 this year for me were I played it on the desktop, had a good time with it. I bought some more of the fast action decks. It's a really great game. It's my favorite boxing game out there. I love it. It's awesome, but I also bought the desktop program, which basically plays the game for you. It's a great way to learn the game because you go, oh, I see, okay, you draw this card and you're looking at that number. Oh, okay, I got it. Yeah, now it starts to make sense. And by playing it on my desktop, I think we played it a bunch this year. I'm going to look up Title Bout, probably my number 2 or 3 game. I played it 11 times this year. Probably about half of them on the computer and half with the cards. So that was the one upgrade, was the digital purchase, which made me understand the program more because I played it and you're clicking and letting the game do its thing, but you're understanding, oh, okay. So if this happens, then you draw a card and you're looking at this number on the next card. Oh, I get it. Okay. And it starts to make a lot more sense. There are some tricky parts to the game. And, trying to understand some of the rule booklets, not the best in the world. And, so understanding the game by playing it through digitally. And then the second upgrade was they re-released the heavyweight division in Title Bout 2 with tarot-sized cards. So normally they're poker-sized cards, 3.5, 2.5 by 3.5 inch regular poker-sized cards, full-size poker-sized cards, which are fine, but sometimes the text is a little bit smaller on them. And then they re-released the heavyweight division in the tarot-sized cards, and the tarot-sized cards look so good. It is, kind of it's not an expensive upgrade, but it is, it does cost you a bunch. But I ended up buying all 5 of the heavyweight division upgrade packs and got them and played them a couple times. And the tarot size cards are awesome. So, of course, this game had to go up a little bit from 17 to 14. Still, probably for all purposes out there, probably my number 1 sports game because of how much I play it and how much I enjoy it and all of, just the mechanisms. There are 4th edition charts you can use. There's 5th edition charts. They keep updating and changing things and altering things and fine-tuning things and making it better. And it's just, if you're I'm not even a boxing guy. I haven't watched a live boxing fight in probably 20 years. I mean, Mike Tyson's heyday was like my heyday. That was it. I watched, Mike Tyson. I've never in my entire lifetime got an HBO package. I never bought any of the pay-per-views. I've got zero, never in my lifetime. So I'm not a boxing guy. I could care less. I don't even know who the champion is. So for me to have boxing as like my number 1 sports game of all time is like, first of all, it's very shocking, but it's just shows you how well this game is designed and how much fun it is to play it and how realistic and smooth and the gameplay is. So my number 14 title, Bout 2, up 3 spots from number 17 last year. And again, probably will stay in very high regards in 2025. We'll be probably playing it anywhere between 10 and 15 times, using the computer program, using the tarot size cards, having a great time. I don't foresee this taking any big drop anytime soon, but we'll see. My number 14, Title Bout 2. Number 13 was number 10 last year. So it dropped 3 spots, but very close to where it was. Not much difference. Of course, we know there's going to be a new number 2 and a new number 3. So those 2 spots might be why this dropped down a couple spots. So it was number 10 last year, and this is going to be a combination spot. Again, this spot is for 2 games. Very similar, almost. They are the same game. They're just different names. One is called Bullet Heart, and one is called Bullet Star. And oh my God, what to say about this game? It is an amazing game. It is a game where you have a bunch of different characters in the box to play, which we enjoy. Every one of those characters can be a hero or a villain, depending on which side you play it on. And you're taking one hero against one villain. And so you're taking one character up against another character. Each character has their own special ability to create the patterns on her player board, which are, think of them as like Tetris pieces that you need to create with these bullets that are coming into her. And you're putting these bullets out on her player board. And once you get one of her patterns, then you can activate her pattern to send those bullets at the boss and do damage to the boss. And, depending on what the boss's pattern is, you're trying to follow what their pattern is so that they can't do damage back to you. And it is very complex to explain, but it is the all-time number one, like, strategy thinky game for me, because it's like every character again has special ability. Like, I might be able to move a bullet down a spot, which would create that pattern, but every heroine only has 7 points to spend on the round. So if I wait later, I might get the piece drawing out of the bag, because you're drawing all these bullets out of the bag, and you have to complete the draw. You have all these bullets, and you have to draw all of them out of the bag the whole round. And whether you want to or not, you have to do it. So it's like, I could risk drawing another bullet out, so you're a little bit of press your luck there. There's a little bit of luck. There's a lot of luck. There's a lot of strategy, and there's a lot of super cool. I'm going to use her special ability. Like, when you figure it out, like, you're like, oh, I'm so screwed if I draw a high red or a high blue or a high green. So now you're like, okay, I can't do this, so I have to try and create a pattern. How do I create the pattern? And once if I move this down and I slide this over, that gives her a pattern. I can use this pattern to get rid of all these bullets, and that'll do enough damage to take out one of the boss's shields. I know a lot of people don't talk about this game. For some reason, a lot of people don't really know about it or have it very high on their list, and that's fine. It's not for everyone. Do not get this game for multiplayer. There's this weird mechanism, and I've never played it multiplayer, so I don't know, but I think it's a real-time game, and I don't like real-time games, so I would not buy this for a real-time game. This is a solo only for me. It should be a solo only. Puzzly brain burner game where you're trying to calculate and figure out the best way to keep your heroine alive and damage the boss, because you have to knock out 5 shields off the boss before they're dead. And you have to follow your patterns and the boss's patterns, or they will, do damage to you, cause you to take more bullets, take more hits. It's super cool. I love this game. I wish more people knew about it. There's an upgrade pack, which there's cardboard tokens in the game, which are okay. There's an upgrade that you can get, which turns those into actual thick wooden pieces. So if you can get that, definitely get it, because I love those thick. And now when you reach in the bag, it feels mighty and chunky, and you can feel how many bullets are left in your. Oh, okay, there's like 3 bullets. Okay, it's really good. All right, number 12 was number 22. So this game's up 10 spots. A lot of games moving up this year. And it's because we played it a lot. In fact, we played this on Christmas. We played this game coming up, number 12, on Christmas this year. How many times did we play it? Let's see. We played it 3 times. Not a lot, just enough. We actually played this game on Christmas, so it got a little extra, probably up a little bit because I was so new and fresh in my mind. Except for I absolutely did not have a great time on Christmas playing this game because we lost badly to Krampus. We were Mrs. Claus. On Christmas, we were Mrs. Claus and we got steamrolled by Krampus, the anti-Santa or whatever he is. So it was not a good mission, but oh my God, the game I'm talking about, of course I should probably show you the game I'm talking about, is Final Girl. Yeah, number 12, up 10 spots. Every time I play this game, it is a really interesting experience between your final girl, the enemy, and the locations, and the different setups, and the different rules, and the special rules, and the different random items that'll be out there. I mean, every time you set this game up, you can see how different every single game is. And in fact, that's why I'm not holding Christmas against the Final Girl, because our very first event we drew at the beginning of the game was the Blizzard event, which completely broke the game. I could not, or Mrs. Claus couldn't enter a space with a blizzard in it. And the blizzard was just going around. There was 2 blizzards that were going around clockwise around the board, and we couldn't go into any space, so it caused us all kinds of problems. So, I mean, if we didn't have that, we probably would have had a much easier time with it. So I'm not holding Christmas against Final Girl. I probably should, but I'm not going to. It's still a great game. You're talking about, again, Final Girl is all about, the system is basically rolling dice and using cards, and each of your cards take a certain amount of time, and you're trying to complete things on the cards to activate them based upon how many successes you roll on your dice. Your successes are 5 and 6s on a 6-sided dice, but you can get a success on a 3 or 4 if you discard 2 cards, which doesn't sound like that bad a deal, but it is that bad a deal because those cards are what you can do. So if you only have a few cards to do things with, you hate to give up 2 cards to get a success, but if you don't, you will fail then, and sometimes the failure might be to take wounds or lose time or let the enemies move around or whatever, and your job is to try and run around and keep the survivors alive, activating your special power, getting items, and trying to find a way to defeat whatever the boss is, Krampus or whatever. In our mission we played, this is how different Final Girl is, all right? If you don't have the Christmas expansion, this is how different Final Girl was with this expansion and how different the missions are. We were Mrs. Claus, and all of the normal survivors were elves, which is cute. And the elves would run around, and as Krampus moves around the board, he leaves presents behind, which can be good or bad. If any of the little elves run in there, they open the presents, and half the time it was very bad things that would happen to me for some reason, because the elves, nothing bad ever happens to the elves, but it would cause me to lose time or drop items or, all kinds of bad things, make Krampus more powerful. So I'm like, leave the gosh darn presents alone, elves. Now, towards the end, we finally got a couple presents that were good for us, but I couldn't get rid of any of the other presents because of the aforementioned blizzard. So you can just see how different everything is based upon the elves, the setup, where Krampus is, whether it's a good present, an evil present, good, bad, ugly. I mean, it's just what one of the items that was out was Rudolph the reindeer, and I'm like, cool, we can go get Rudolph, and it'll let us move to different locations for free, and that would be great. So I'm headed over to go get Rudolph, and a special event came up that removed all items. We had a special event that was one location burns down, and we rolled a D6, and it was the location that Rudolph was at. I'm like, that's how good this game is. When you yell and scream about how you're getting screwed by the game, that's how good the game is. My number 12, Final Girl. Every time I play it, it's a love-hate thing that I love to love and hate to love. I hate to love it, and I love to love it. It's great. I have all of season 1, all of season 2. We'll probably be playing it a few more times this year, and definitely pick it up if you can get it. You don't have to buy all the seasons, but get you a couple of them and try it out. Number 11, just outside the top 10 of all time. Number 11, it was number 5 last year. And the year before that, it was number 2. So it's taken a little bit. It went from 2 to 5 to 10. So, 10, 11. 11. So 2 to 5 to 11. It's one of my all-time favorite games. I've talked about this game. I love this game to death. The reason it keeps falling is because, yes, it's second edition, and yes, it's finicky, and yes, it's a mammoth hog of space, and it's a mammoth undertaking to keep track of all your different characters. But oh my God, I just love this game. Arkham Horror second edition. Do not get that third edition crap. Do not get first edition crap. Second edition by Richard Launius. Now, a lot of the expansions are very, very out of print and very, very expensive. I have spent somewhere in the neighborhood of between $300 to $400 to $500 in the last couple years picking up some of these expansions because I love this game so much. But you can pick up the base game, either the revised edition or the second edition. Either one, they're basically the same thing. The revised edition or the second edition, you can pick that up for dirt cheap, like $30, $35 max. I mean, you can get it for pretty gosh darn cheap. This is, in my opinion, one of the all-time classic what's the word I'm looking for? Conference. When you go to a game conference, games. Like when you get 4 or 5 or 6 people sitting around a table playing this game for 6 hours or 4 hours or whatever it takes to play through. It is a mammoth game, a mammoth undertaking, a mammoth amount of time. It is a mammoth amount of effort. But when you're playing and having a good time with all your friends and trying to figure out different strategies and trying to work out how somehow you're going to defeat and keep the Ancient One from awakening, and trying to keep them in wraps and trying to close all the different gates that are coming out and dodging all the horrible, absolutely destroyful monsters. And then adding in more expansions and more expansions and more expansions to get more cards and more options and more this and more that. And it's just so good. I just love it so much. Arkham Horror 2nd Edition. Now, it's taken a little bit of a fall because, again, it is a mammoth undertaking in time, trouble, and effort, especially when you're playing solo. I have to keep characters on this table and characters over here. I got the main playing board here. I got the side player board over here. It is like literally my whole desk and everything is transformed into Arkham Horror because it is a beast. Now, you also have to worry about each character is going to get somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 to 6 to 8 cards. So you have those cards you're going to have to worry about. You're going to have little tokens on the character card showing how much, what their skill level is and their lore level and their movement and their sneak, and just bumping the table one little bit is going to knock these pieces off, and keeping track of how many gates and clues they have and how much money they have and all their special abilities. Then you have character interactions with one another. Yes, you can see it is a mammoth undertaking for the solo player. With a base game, the base game, and playing it solo, you can play it with 2 characters, you can play it with 3, you can play it with 4. It's a great, awesome, awesome game. I'm not recommending that you be as a nut job like me and add in 2 or 3 expansions and the base game and, make it a mammoth undertaking. You don't have to do that. It is it's a little finicky, I will admit. It is a little finicky because you have to roll when you encounter a monster. You have to check and see what kind of monster it is. Sometimes you can evade them, sometimes you can't. Once you have combat with it, you have to do a will check first. And if you fail the will check, something may or may not happen. Then you have to fight it. And hopefully this is simply a 5 or 6 is a success type game. So you're rolling like 3 or 4 dice, hoping to get a 5 or 6. You can roll 8 dice, and if you get no successes, yeah, they've happened. It's happened to me. It happens. And then, of course, you can roll 1 dice and get a success. So it's just the game tells a great story every time. At the end, each time the characters are done moving, then the game plays against you, and more gates will show up, and clues will show up, and more bad things will happen, or more good things might happen, or you might get, deputized, or you might be whatever. You just never know. There's stacks and stacks and stacks of different events and different cards that you can come across, and the different combinations just endless. Like I said, it's fallen a little bit because it is a little finicky and it was a little much to play solo. But it's still a top 11 game of all time, and that's nothing to sneeze at. It is. I will play this. How many times do we play this year? Actually, that's a good question. Probably not that much. Arkham War we played twice. Yeah, so we only played it twice. It is It is going to be 2 to 4 to 6 hours, depending on you can have a very short game, which means you lost, which happens all the time, or you have a long game, which means you usually win, when that game is like 6 hours. So it goes anywhere from 2 to 6 hours, depending on whether you win or lose. If you lose, that means it's a very short game, because that normally means bad things happen, you never were able to recuperate, and the Ancient One woke up before you had jack diddly squat. Yeah, that's why I said it's like the number 1 convention game for me. Drag this game to a convention. Your friends are there. You're there. You got plenty of space. You got plenty of time. You spend a Saturday evening or Sunday morning playing this all day for 4, 6, 8 hours, whatever it takes to get the job done. And it's a beautiful masterpiece. My number 11, Arkham Horror. And we're halfway home, boys and girls. We're in the top 10 of all time. Top 10, my number 10 game. And I wish I would have brought my glass in to get something to drink because my throat's getting a little parched. But we're in the top 10, so let's get to it. This was number 1 2 years ago. Last year, it was number 4. This year, it's number 10. So it was 1, 4, 10. It is, without a doubt, I've been spending years of my life dedicated to creating the greatest YouTube tutorial series for this game. And one of my goals in 2025 is to complete this and be done with it and move on and create a tutorial series for Sentinels of the Multiverse. So we're going to be playing a lot of Dominion this year, I foresee. And that is my number 10 game of all time. The deck building game that introduced deck building to the world and showed it how awesome it can be. How awesome is Dominion is the fact that this game has been out for almost 20 years, and it has 15 full-fledged expansions. In fact, they came out with an expansion in 2024 called Rising Sun, Rising Sky, Rising Sun. I think it's Rising Sun. The amount of content in Dominion it's all about deck building. So you start with crappy cards. Everyone starts with the same crappy 10 cards. And there's cards in the middle of the table that cost money to buy, or there's money you can purchase, or there's victory point cards, or, so your job is to try and find a way. And this is how I describe Dominion, is you are a baker and you are trying to find the perfect way to create a cake with the ingredients that are on the table. And the first one to create a perfect cake wins. So you might want to use 3 of these cards and 2 of these cards and 5 of these cards. And so on your turn, you're purchasing cards and buying cards and adding them to your deck. And you're trying to get to create the perfect cake before anyone else does. That's how I describe Dominion to everyone out there. It's the ultimate race game where you're racing to try and win. The first person to get once the province victory point cards are removed, or when there's 3 piles that are completely empty, the game is over. So it only lasts 20 minutes, 30 minutes max. 20 minutes is more like it. It plays 2 to 5, and the only reason this has dropped down is because there is no dedicated solo. Now, you can play this online on Steam. Mwah! It's awesome. It's great. You can look at all the cards. You can try different strategies. You can play it over and over and over again against a really good AI online on Steam. But, I mean, if you're playing with cards in your hand, you're going to have to play two-handed. So it's just not as good. Yes, you can get online and play for sure. Yep. I have the Steam. I bought it in the Steam app, and it's awesome and it's great. I'm not sure if the app on the phone is the same, but yeah, you can get on and play and buy all the expansions. It's gonna be a cost. It's gonna be a cost to get into it, but there is no dedicated solo. But again, the amount of variety and the amount of different content in this game is just. I've talked about it many times. The different amount of content is like, there's like 180 zeros after it. It's like 8.16 to the 46 power or something like that, which is literally, if you print it out on a piece of paper, you have 3 pages with nothing but 000, comma, 000, comma, 000, comma. Somebody said if you take a grain of sand and toss it into the Grand Canyon, you take a grain of sand and toss it in for every different combination there are in Dominion, you could fill up the Grand Canyon 17 times or something crazy like that. It's just, the amount of content is insanely absurd. When you have 15 different expansions, each different expansion has between 10 to 20 or between 15 and 30 cards added to the game. It's just, I mean, just forget it. It's just so much. By number 10 is Dominion. Number 9. Is it my highest war game? It might be my highest war game. It was number 7 last year, so it's actually dropped a few spots, which is surprising because I played this online and played it against somebody face to face for the first time in like 12 years. If you've been around my channel anytime, you know that I was considered the combat commander champion of the world when I defeated Jerry, the previous combat commander champion of the world. So I am the current combat commander champion of the world. I will use that for the rest of my life against him. And actually, me and Jerry are going to be playing a lot of games this year together. He's a great sport, and of course, he knows I'm just teasing him. We have a great time playing against one another. He's really fair. He, plays the best of his ability, but he's totally honest. He's like me, if somebody forgets to do something, oh, hey, don't forget, you got this character over here. Oh, yeah, I forgot all about him, Our gameplay that we played came down to a random event where I got a hero for the Germans, and then I was able to put that hero into a spot and use that to inspire that group of guys to go in and assault the guys that were in the adjacent hex, which gave me an advantage. And then he ended up rolling a 2 or 3 on his attack roll. So all I had to do was meet that, so it was like automatic victory. And of course I had the fate card, so he couldn't re-roll that. And so that's how close it was. It was literally whoever won that assault won the game. It gave me, I think I ended up getting 5 or 6 points from that assault. And I only won by 7. So without that assault, I was 1 point up on him, or maybe 1.5 points. I forget what it was, but it wasn't a lot. So that's why I love Combat Commander. It is nonsense. It is crazy nonsense. We had fires and blazes showing up all over the map, and they were all in the one northern corner. We had a fields, and there was a group of maybe 10 hexes that were fields, and 5 hexes started on fire, which were so thematic, because you can just see if something starts on fire, then the next hex is going to start on fire. And it was just oh my God, of all the random hexes it could have been, it went to the same hex. Are you kidding? Up in the same quadrant. That was just so funny. So yeah, Combat Commander, if you enjoy chaos, you enjoy I can't do anything. I hope he doesn't do anything tricky or smart, because I got to try to manage these hand and get rid of it. A lot of times you're debating about, do I get rid of this hand or do I activate the one card I can do, which will make it very weak hand next turn? Do I try to keep some cards for the end of the turn? Because maybe I'll have some dig-in cards. Am I afraid that he's going to try to ambush me? Maybe I try to keep these ambush cards in my hand because I'm afraid he's going to try to assault me. There's so much strategy, so many random things that can happen. Again, I had a random event where I got a reinforcement. The reinforcement was there was a choice of 5 things. I chose the hero to add, and it was only because I added that hero I was able to defeat him in our close combat fight. So it's just awesome. I love this game, and every time I play it, like I said, it's been 15 years since I played face-to-face. I've actually played this game solo with my own solo variant on the channel, earlier this year, last year. A couple times I've been working on trying to find a solo that works because I love this game so much and I want it to work. But now I've got Jerry, or, I got the Combat Commander guys that I can go look at. So my number 9, Combat Commander, number 7 last year. Awesome. Love it. What are we at? 8. 8, yes. Was number 34 last year. Bump up. Big bump up this year. 34 all the way to number 8. We just played this not too long ago. Several times, actually. I played it myself, and then I played with Phoenix Knight one night online. We played it together. This is a game called Spirit Island. It is probably one of the best solo games out there, with the amount of content there is and the amount of different spirits there is. It says a cooperative settler destruction strategy game, but you play solo really, really good. Of course, when you're playing solo, you're taking one spirit and you only have that one spirit. When you're playing multiplayer or co-op in this game, you're going to have several different spirits. The island grows, more different options, because now you have interaction with your different characters and the different spirits. It is really, really, really good game. And is a very complex, very convoluted game that, is very, I wouldn't say easy to learn, but very understandable. I mean, if you sit down There is there's a new version they came out with this year that is kind of a dumbed down version of Spirit Island. It's what they're calling a family friendly version. So everything is a little bit easier. Everything's more friendlier, and not as hard and difficult. Regular Spirit Island is a very complex game, and it takes a little bit of time to remember everything and some of the rules. And even I've played it a bunch of times. I'm still looking at and forgetting to do certain things. It is a super cool game. It's very thematic. You are basically spirits, and you're trying to get the Dahan, which is the island residents, to fight off the invaders. You can have different countries be the invaders, or you don't have to. You can use like England or France or Burgundy, and each of these countries has their own special abilities and a way to make the game more difficult, because the game might not be difficult enough for you because you're a professional. But there is easy spirits to play, medium spirits to play, hard and very hard spirits with very convoluted, understanding of how to play that character and how to maximize them. And that's what you're trying to do, is maximize your spirit's abilities to get the most out of them. And that's the only way to win the scenarios. There are different kinds of scenarios you can play as well. So it's just a very involved game. My number 8 game this year. It's been up and down and up and down, but it's for this year. It's up. I'm liking it more. My number 7 is a big jumper. Last year was 82, and the reason this is so much higher on the list is we played it, kind of a requirement to be up in my top 20 or 30 of all time. You have to have played it. How many times do we play this? Just twice, which is fine. But this is a pretty meaty game, and I keep telling people about it, and I think it's war-themed Cthulhu. Does anyone know what a war game Cthulhu game is out there? Well, that's my number 7. And it is Australia. Martin Wallace masterpiece. Australia. Not a lot of people have this very high on their list. I really think it's good because I'm a Euro gamer. I'm a war gamer. I can see the war theme. I can see the Euro mechanics, and I can see how they interact. I'm trying to get Russ Swordsman because he's like me, a Euro gamer and a war gamer, and I figured this would be right up his alley. He doesn't think so, but I need to keep playing this over and over and again until he forces himself to get a copy of this game. He will be very happy when he does, I think. This is a war-themed Cthulhu game where you're basically in Australia and you randomly set up the board with different resources out there, and then you put down all the different tokens on the map face down, so you're never sure what's in what area, and then you're picking a starting location. And your job is to use this very intuitive, cool mechanism where there's a time track. And the person that gets to activate is the person that's later in the time track. So like Cthulhu starts at like the 20 spot. So you start at the 1 spot. So who's earlier in the time track? You. So you get to go. And you get to go again and again and again and again. And you're trying to maximize your turns because everything you do takes a certain amount of time. Eventually, you make it up to where Cthulhu is and pass him. Now Cthulhu takes a turn where he will pop open some of those tokens on the board. And you will start experiencing some of the monsters. At that point, you have got to have prepared yourself to defend and attack some of these monsters that are coming to kill your base and destroy your units. It is very thematic, and it is so interesting about how I could do this, but it's going to take 3 time, and oh my god, I don't want to waste 3 time, and I want this character, but to get that character, it's going to cost me, and you're always comparing how much time everything costs. It is so cool. You always feel like, oh, I start at 1, he starts at 20, I got plenty of time. And like 3, 4, 5, 6 turns, and then, oh, shoot, now I'm like really close now. Wait a minute. I don't have anything. What the hell did I do for 6 turns? Holy cow. What have I been doing for 6 turns? I got like 1 guy and 1 unit. How is that even possible? Yeah, you have moments like that. It's like, oh my God, do you think you got all the time in the world to do things? Nope. And then the time track starts at 20, and then you keep battling back and forth. You take a turn, he take a turn. You take a turn, he take a turn, all the way till the very end. When it gets to 50, the game is over. So, yeah, it's you see the time track moving through, and you're trying to get as many things done, as many enemies killed, because those are victory points at the end, trying to get as many victory point cards, and you're trying to get all that by the end, and before you know it, like an hour to an hour and a half into this game, it's over. There is 2 sides to the board. One is an easier, one is a harder side. There is a big boxed deluxe edition of this, which is what I have. And if you can get that, I would recommend you can get that. It's just so cool and such easy design, but it makes it so thematic. Like, you always know Cthulhu is out there waiting. And yes, I keep saying Cthulhu because one of the tokens that can randomly be there is Cthulhu, and you might have to fight Cthulhu off. Good luck if that happens. I'm just saying. But he's worth a lot of victory points at the end of the game if you can get him. But I mean, you better have a lot of stuff. So that's the other thing, is you're always worried about, if the more turns Cthulhu takes, the more tokens he flips over. Eventually, he's going to flip over a Cthulhu. And yeah, there's only one Cthulhu, but yeah, he can show up. Fortunately, in the 2 games we played this year, we did not have Cthulhu show up. In fact, one game we completely dominated. And the second game was a little bit closer. And it was more of a back and forth affair. But I remember the first game, we just I don't know what happened, but we did really, really well. And I thought, well, there's ways to make the game easier or harder based on, you can start Cthulhu instead of starting him at 20. You can start him at 25 if you want to make the game easier. Gives you more time to prepare. Or if you want to make the game harder, start Cthulhu at 15 because, show up sooner. So depending on, you can really fine tune how difficult or easy this game is. So once I played this game, I'm like, we really won this pretty handily. It wasn't very tough. Maybe we should make it a little more difficult. My number 7, Australia. Martin Wallace masterpiece. Number 6 was number 13 last year, so up 7 spots. Played it a few times. It's one of my all-time favorite deck building games. It is, of course, Aeon's End. We just repurchased War Eternal and had it shipped in, and so it was sitting here. We played it a few times when we got it and started replaying the War Eternal. So this, again, Aeon's End spot is for anything Aeon's End, War Eternal, or all the other expansions and play, packages, the Legacy Edition, anything Aeon's End, we're just putting in this one spot. It is, you are breach mages, and you're trying to fight against a boss. One of the things I really, really like. Each boss is very, very different, but it is a lot of deck building, but the main mechanism in Aeon's End, and this was introduced by Aeon's End, and first time that I knew about, maybe other games had it, but the first game I knew about it was, this is a deck building game where you don't shuffle. So when your deck runs out, you just simply take your deck and you flip it over and you draw. So as you're discarding your cards, you're methodically discarding them in order because you know when it flips over, you want, their better cards towards the top because you'll see them more often, or you can try to get different combinations to go together based upon, the last card I had last turn and the first card I have this turn will work well together, so I'll put those two together. So Aeon's End is a deck building game. Your breach mages, again, like Dominion, you have a kingdom in the middle where you have cards. You're going to be purchasing these cards to add to your deck because you're going to be starting with the worst, cards. You're starting with sparks, which do 1 point of damage, and you're starting with the ether. You're starting with 1 point of ether on each card, which is not very good. So your hand might be 1 damage and like 3 ether points. Woo, and each card, costs 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 points, or 10 ether. Each breach mage has their own special ability, but you have to charge it up by spending some of that very valuable ether instead of buying new equipment and new spells and new relics and special abilities and more better ether. Like you can buy an ether that gives you 2 on its card, or 3 ether, or 3 and a bonus. There's all, so you're trying to get all these nice, super cool combinations. As breach mages, you have breaches out in front of you, 4 breaches, and you're trying to activate all the breaches so you can put out, well, in the beginning you only have 1 active, but eventually if you put all 4 active, you can have 4 spells out. And, you feel this progression. In the beginning, you're putting out 1 spark, doing 1 point of damage to an enemy. By the end of the game, you might have 4 spells out there, doing 6 to 8 points apiece, and you're doing 30 points of damage in a round, and you feel like, yeah, baby, I gotten somewhere, I'm doing something, let's rock and roll. So Aeon's End, very cool deck building, very cool mages, each one with its own special ability, special power, charging it up, energizing it. As you can see on just the base game, there's 4 or 5 different characters in there. War Eternal has 4 or 5 different characters. There's got to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 45, 50 different breach mages, each with their own special abilities. There are somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 36 different enemies you can be fighting. Each of the enemies are level 1, level 2, level 3, or level 4. There are campaigns that you can go through. It is a lot to do in just a very simple, easy box of Aeon's End. The core box will get you a nice variety of breach mages, a nice variety of enemies, and a nice variety of cards to try out. You don't need anything beyond that. But once you get in and try the original game, which this is the box for the original game, or get War Eternal, or get Outcasts, or get any of the other, what I'm calling big box games, they're all pretty much the same. They have a campaign, they have a structure, they have 4 to 6 mages, they have 4 different enemy bosses, and they come with all the tokens and all the different dials you're going to need. And and the best, I can't even believe I forgot the best, one of the bestest things about Aeon's End is it has variable initiative, because you're going to put in cards in the initiative for player 1, player 2, player 3, player 4, and the villain, and you're going to shuffle that up, and then you're going to draw them out randomly to determine who's going when. So you're never sure when you're going to go in your turn. It's a so cool design. It is deck building extraordinaire with a lot of really cool mechanisms. Aeon's End, number 6. Number 5 was number 35 last year. So this is shot up. And it shot up because how many times did I play this game? A bunch. I'm talking a super bunch. Yep, I played it 9 times. 9 times. It is by far my favorite roll and write, and by far by one of my all-time favorite companies. That's about the third or fourth time I said about this company, and just about every one of their games is on here. And the company is Thunderworks Games, and the roll and write is Cartographers. Now, the reason we played this a lot is it is kind of a pain in the ass to get to the table, and I admit that. And, in 2023, that's why it dropped to number 35. It's a great game, but it's a pain in the ass to get to the table, to be honest. But you can play this on Board Game Arena, and it sets it up in a second for you to play. And you can sit down and just play the game and not have to worry about shuffling decks and setting it all up. And it's awesome. I really, really enjoy it on Cartographers on Board Game Arena. I can get a game done in anywhere between 11 to 15 minutes. And yeah, it's not a very long game. You can play along. You can go back and watch all 9 episodes that I played of this game. And what you can do is you can see the card come out, because it'll be like, okay, here's the shape you need to draw. And you have a map grid. And there are certain pieces on the map. There are mountains and maybe depending on the terrain, you might have a lava map, or you might have a big hole in the middle, or you might just have an open fields with just a couple mountains. There's a couple ruins out there. And so you're basically taking the Tetris piece. They'll just say it's like an L-shaped piece, and you got to put it out, and it's either an L shape of city or farmland, and you have to decide how you're going to build it and where you're going to build it. And depending on which card is going to be scoring, you're playing 4 seasons. You're going to be playing spring, summer, winter, spring, summer, fall, and winter. There you go. And you're going to be scoring for spring. You're going to score spring and summer cards, and for summer you're going to score the summer and fall cards. For fall, you're going to score the fall and winter cards. And then for winter, you're going to score the winter and spring cards. So every card scores twice during the game. And so you're trying to figure out when to try to maximize the different scoring opportunities. And where you're going to put the pieces, you will have different enemies showing up, which you'll have to put on your board, and then they will score minus points for as many empty spaces are adjacent to the enemies. Cartographers also has a Heroes expansion, and Season 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. It just might be 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I'm not really sure if there's a Season 1. But there's many expansions that add just new cards to the game. The Leaders expansion will add leaders, which help you defeat the monsters and change up the structure of the terrain a little bit and add in some new ways to score. It's just the best roll and write out there. Again, I play it on Board Game Arena just because it's so quick to set up that way and so easy, and it's just so much fun to play it. It's just kind of a pain in the ass to figure out, okay, you're going to do A and then B and then C and then D, which is, spring, summer, fall, and winter. And then you got to figure out which cards go into which group. And it's just kind of finicky to set it up. So if Board Game Arena, if you got that, you can play it in, like I said, 12, 15 minutes and be done and have a great time. My number 5, Cartographers. Number 4 was number 11 last year. It bumped up 7 spots. It is maybe number 1 in quite a few people's eyes out there. It is a great tableau building game of a zoo. And that is, of course, Ark Nova. Hello, William. Good to see you. Thanks a lot, buddy. Thanks for coming out. All right, so Ark Nova is a tableau building game with a cool mechanism where you have 5 different powers in front of you, and they're from left to right, and depending on which slot they're in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that tells you how much power that thing is. So if you try to put animals in your zoo and it's rank 5, you could put in, a lot more than you could if it's rank 1. If you try to build a location in your zoo, it's going to be, the higher it is. So there's this whole mechanism where you're trying to use the most powerful cards, but when you use it, it's got to go all the way back to number 1. And so you're kind of cycling through using the better cards to put all the really cool pieces in your zoo, so then you can get the cool animals, and you're trying to complete different objectives and different scoring opportunities, and trying to get things to mix and match together. There is a Marines expansion, which actually is one of the games that actually is good to get an expansion for, because it does add a cool new Marine mechanism to the game, but it's not intrusive, and it doesn't screw the game up like a lot of expansions out there do. It actually helps the game quite a bit. Now, there is an AI system that Ark Nova came with. When a lot of people poo-poo, it's okay, I play it, it's fine. But there is an AI system called the Arno system that a fan created and posted online that everyone really, really loves. I've played both games, are both AI systems. I think they're both fine. I probably don't have a preference one over the other. I might say the Arno is maybe better, but it is kind of finicky. So I think Ark Nova for me might be a little bit higher, and even though number 4 is pretty good, it might even be a little higher if it had a better, more laid out solo mode. Now, it's not really designed for solo. It's designed for several people to sit around and build their zoos and compare their zoos, compare with animals they get in their zoos, and have a lot of interaction and fun. And I can see that, right? And that's why a lot of people love this game. It's got great artwork. It does have that nice interaction with the players, and, oh, hey, oh, you got pandas. I love pandas. Oh, I wish I would have got the pandas. All I got is the stupid snakes. Oh, I hate snakes. I know, I hate snakes too. And then you got this whole, conversation going on. You're playing solo. You're not doing all that stuff, obviously, as a solo player. So in the solo mode, I wish it was a little bit more round out, a little bit better. We did play Ark Nova online again on Board Game Arena. Let's see what we're at. All right. Oh, actually, it says we only played once, so I don't know if that's a typo. If I forgot to put more, I'm going to have to remember to make sure, double check my work this year, because I'm pretty sure I played it more than once. Again, the one reason this might, fall down the list is because it is a mammoth game to get to the table. I know I haven't got my copy out because my copy is buried deep. So the only time I'm going to play this is on Board Game Arena. My copy is buried pretty deep. It would take me probably 15. I would have to move like 15 games out of the way and off of on top of it to get to the bottom of the pile so I could get this game out to play it. Still a great game, great artwork, great pictures, different actual live pictures. There's no it's pictures. It's not art. It's photographs of animals and zookeepers and people in the zoo and stuff like that. But there is this tableau building. You're trying to build the different locations. So, I need, this animal might need a size 3 land location. This animal might need a size 5 location, but it has to be next to the mountains. Depending on your board, depending on where you build your tableau, it covers up different spots, which might have different bonuses that you can earn. You're trying to also do things like getting different sponsorships to different universities, and you're trying to complete different, I'm not going to say economic, different ecological projects That's the word I'm looking for. Ecological projects out there that you can complete to earn bonus points. If you have, 3 mammals in your zoo, you can try to claim that objective. And, you're doing all this stuff, and you're trying to. There's 2 tracks. There is a victory point track and I'm going to say intrigue, but it's not intrigue. I can't remember what the other one is. But you're basically one starting up at the top of the board and one starting at the bottom, and you're trying to go around the board and have those 2 intersect. When somebody has those 2 intersect, the game is over, and you basically score based on that. I'm trying to remember what that other track is, but I can't remember what it is. But it doesn't really matter. It's fine. Arc Nova, I know a lot of people's number 1 or number 2 or number 3. For me, number 4, which is really, really good because it's in the top 5 of all time. That's pretty good. All right, here we go. We're getting up to the top 3 games of all time. My number 3, and I played this a bunch this year. How many times did I play this? I'd be surprised if it's less than 15. Well, I am surprised. It says 10 times. Wow. Okay, I could have sworn. So this is one of these things where I don't credit myself enough for what I do, because a lot of times I have apps on my phone that I use to play games. Like when I take my wife to the hospital and she has surgery and gets her knee replaced, and I'm at the hospital for like 6 hours doing nothing. I'm playing like Wingspan like 6 or 7 times in a row. And that is my number 3 game of all time this year is Wingspan. We were talking about Wormspan not too long ago. We're talking about Wingspan, and it's the reason this is so high for this year is we played it 10 times, which is a pretty good amount. That's once a month, just about. It's by Stonemaier Games, which means it's the Atoma Factory, which means it's got a great, awesome solo mode, which it does. There's a lot of variety and the easiness of playing this game because I can play it in cards and dice. In fact, look at what I got. I just got these in, which are tokens for all of the different Wingspan resources. So there's worms and there's a boatload of those resources in there, and you can actually see the Wingspan logos there. But yeah, there's like 20 or 30 or 40 different pieces of each of the different resources because I'm like, I love Wingspan. I'm going to keep playing it. So I can play this cards and dice on my table. I can play this on my phone app. I can play this on Steam. I've got like 10 different ways to play it, which makes it very easy to get it to the table. It's a 40, 45, 50-minute game. This is a engine building game where you're trying to put out birds. Each of the birds has a special ability. So when you activate that row of birds, there's 3 different rows. There's the forest, there's the grasslands, and there's the wetlands. And certain birds will go in the forest. Certain birds will go in the wetlands. Some birds might go in all 3. Some of the birds are going to be rated for whether or not they are carnivores, or their wingspan is how wide their wingspan is, how many eggs they can hold, what kind of nests they build. And then every round you have a scoring objective. Like your first one might be have as many birds as in the wetlands. Like how many birds you get in the wetlands, you score. And you're comparing yourself to the AI or your other players, depending on if you're playing multiplayer. And you're scoring points that way. Every round, there is 5 rounds in this game, I think. And yeah, the AI is Atoma Factory. Very simple, very easy. You're flipping up a card. It tells you what it does. You're trying to put bird eggs out there because each one of those eggs is a victory point at the end of the game. You're also doing a tuck mechanism where some birds might tuck a card underneath it. Those are all worth victory points at the end of the game. And you're just basically trying to fine-tune your engine to get as much victory points as you can. And obviously you're trying to build your engine where, okay, I'm going to activate all of my wetland birds. And you just go and, okay, this bird might say, take a grain from the supply and put it on this bird. So now you can use that grain because that bird, found you some grain. And the next bird might say, get 2 victory points or tuck 2 cards under this bird. And so you do that, and every turn it's going to earn you 2 victory points. And then the next bird might say something like, spend 1 grain to get 2 resources from the supply of your choice. You got a nice little engine going because one bird is getting you a resource that you're using later on to get more resources. And you're also getting victory points by putting things underneath there. It's super quick, super simple. You can teach somebody. The artwork is great. It's my number 3 game because, again, ease of play. It's on Board Game Arena. It's on Steam. I've got it in Cards and Dice. It's on my phone. It's all over everywhere. It seems like everywhere I go, I can play Wingspan, which is, in my opinion, great. Sure, I had to buy it. I had to buy it on Steam, and I had to buy it on my phone. And I mean, you're buying the base game and a couple expansions, and it's only, it's not very much. Maybe like $10, $15, $20, whatever it is. And now I can play it on my phone all the time, and it's awesome. I'd even have a little app that helps me keep track of when I have the Cards and Dice version. I have a little app that'll help me do the scoring at the end of the game. And yeah, it's really good. All right, so now we're on to the top 2. And if you've been around my channel for any amount of time in the last, 2, 3, 4 years, you probably know which 2 games I've not talked about yet. And it's probably because I played these games the most. You would go, oh, hey, where's this game? And where is this game? And in fact, I played the number 2 game on my list 30 times in 2024. 30 times. That's why a reason why it's number 2. This game was number 18 last year. And in 2023, it was number 28. So this game is keep coming up. It went from 28 to 18, and now from 18 all the way up to number 2. As much as I hate, and I mean hate, the mechanics of this game, I just play it a ton. I enjoy it, and I love to hate this game, and I hate to love this game at the same time. It is, of course, Marvel Champions. You're playing Marvel Champions. It is a Fantasy Flight game. And it's an LCG where you're buying a hero pack, which will give you extra cards to add in to build your own deck. And so you're going to take Superman. You're going to take Spider-Man, or you're going to take Iron Man, or Thor, or Rocket Raccoon, or Nova, or any of those characters, and you're going to use all those cards, and you're going to build a deck, and then you're going to go up against different villains. There's Rhino, there's Ultron, there is Thanos, there's, Crossbones, half of these bosses I don't even know about. And so there is somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 to 55 different Marvel champions to play, and there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 35 to 40 different villains to go up against. You can play this solo one-on-one. You can play it multi-handed, 2 heroes against 1. It does scale up very well. There is a lot of deck building in this game because you're trying to fine-tune your decks. You're trying to figure out what combinations, what you can do to kind of improve yourself. Unfortunately, the hate part of this is it is by Fantasy Flight. This is part of their LCG, which means it's a living card game. And as the game evolves and goes through its cycles and keeps going and going and going, more and more powerful and more meaningful and more interesting things come out because they think, oh, we can add this and we can do this and blah, blah, blah. Which means all the kind of things that come out in the beginning of the game are kind of like plain Jane. And Fantasy Flight really doesn't go back and fix those games or give those characters improvements. And unfortunately, my favorite Marvel heroes are the Avengers, which were the original characters that were released. They did the Avengers, then they did the Guardians of the Galaxy cycle, then they did the X-Men, and now they're on the X-Force. And so, like, now the Avengers, like some of the heroes that are Avengers, are some of the weakest, most pitiful characters in the game. The number one weakest character in this game is Hulk, which a lot of people, how can he be the number one weakest character? It's because his mechanisms of drawing cards, he only gets 4 cards. Most characters get 5 cards or 6 cards. He only gets 4 cards, and you're spending cards as your resource to activate your powers and do all your special things. Cards are power in this game, and the least amount of cards you have means the least amount of power. There are only one character that has 4 cards, which is Hulk, and there's a couple other characters that start with 4, but they have a way to bump it back up to 5. Like Thor, I think, starts with 4 cards. Not right now. So Thor, I think, starts with 4 cards, but he can get the Asgard location, which will mean he gets +1 to his hand size, so he's back from 4 up to 5 just because of that. Hulk doesn't have any way to do that. He's just the wimpiest card. So I'm not trying to say bad things about Hulk. What I'm trying to say is the one downside with Fantasy Flight and their living card games is they continuously power up the game as it goes through its evolution, and they never go back to the beginning and update any of those characters with new cards or new special abilities or new powers. You can see the evolution because some of the cards in the original cycle in the Avengers cost like, spend a resource to draw your special card out of your deck, which is like, okay, it costs me a resource. I have to discard a resource so that I can get my Thor's hammer. Now you have characters coming out nowadays, like the X-Force and the X-Men characters, who automatically start with their card in. They're automatic, they're like their big weapon or whatever, automatically starts in play, ready to go. It doesn't cost anything. You just find it. You have like Storm, starts with a weather deck in play, which does massive amounts of damage for free every round. I mean, it's just the power cycle, and that's why, having the ability to go back in and fine-tune your decks and try to make some of your weaker characters better. It's this whole power struggle. It's like, each of the heroes has got a power level, each of the villains has got a power level, so you got to try to find something about equal. If you find a really powerful hero and a very weak enemy, it's not a very fun game because you're smacking them around for nothing. If you find a very powerful enemy and a very weak hero, he's smacking you around for nothing. So you're constantly trying to find a nice balance, a nice structure. It is a super thematic, interesting game. Quite expensive to get into with all the different characters and expansion packs, and they got another Shield cycle coming out soon, which is going to add Shield heroes and probably like Fury and the one girl, Nick, whatever her face is. I'm trying to think of what her name is. Anyways, why is it number 2? Well, I played a ton because I I mean, I keep wanting to get my heroes back up to where they make, they're the most powerful and stuff. And I trying the different heroes and playing the different heroes. They have Magneto just came out, which, is supposed to be super cool and super powerful, but I haven't even played him yet because I'm still going through. Here's a deck right here that I happen to have out. I have my Doctor Strange deck, which I keep, wanting to try out and play a mission with. I have the Thor deck here because, again, Thor is one of the weaker characters because it's been out for 3 years or 5 years or whatever it's been, and so trying to find cards that might make him a little more powerful is half the struggle. And it's a time sink, and it's an effort and everything, but it is a fun game. It is a game I love to hate, and I've talked bad about this game and cursed and swore and how dumb this game is and on the theory and ridiculousness, but I also hate to love it because, man, I just keep coming back and playing it. I played it 30 times. It is a lot of fun to sit down and try out different characters. Every character plays different. There's tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of different cards now. But you'll have boxes and boxes of cards, and you might only use the same 20 or 30 cards over and over again because those are the best of the best, right? I mean, if you're going to put cards in your deck, you're going to put the best of the best cards in your deck. It is a great thematic, interesting game, but there is deck building, there is managing, there is power. Again, the one issue, power structure, and trying to find, I could take a really powerful hero, but I got to put him against a really powerful villain because otherwise it's not as fun. And then sometimes, you're looking at the cards. Is it the cards that's the problem, or is it just because I didn't draw the right cards? Each character deck is between 40 to 50 cards. So, I mean, you might not get the cards you need for a certain amount of time. It's number 2, so it's one of the best games ever. And yes, I say a lot of bad things about it, but again, I also hate to love it because I keep coming back and playing it over and over and over and over and over and over again. But my number 1 game of all time is its twin brother, but in my opinion, a better version of Marvel Champions. And of course, there's a lot to say about it. And that is Sentinels of the Multiverse. Again, I went into this saying to you guys, the games I like is games that give you lots of different characters to play, lots of variability, lots of different villains, lots of different environments, lots of different combinations that you can sit down and play. And Marvel Champions and Sentinels of the Multiverse give you those in spades. And that's why they're number 1 and number 2. And, in my eyes, will probably be number 1 and number 2 for a long, long time, depending on how things go with my life and if I change my mind about things. Now, Sentinels of the Multiverse, what's the difference about it? Well, Sentinels of the Multiverse uses the card structure of every hero has a deck, and that is your deck you play with. So there is no deck building at all in this game. 0 deck building. Which means you know what your power structure is because you're not taking cards in and out of your deck. Which is a good thing, but it's also a bad thing. Okay? Because unlike Marvel Champions where I can go, well, this character sucks at doing investigation, so I need to add in some investigation cards. I can't do that in Sentinels of the Multiverse because each card deck is set. If you want to play Legacy, here's his 40 card deck, go to it. But on the other side, it is good because you know what this character can do, and it's not going to change, and you know what cards to expect and what cards to play. And there is no deck building in it. There is a ton of different variability in this game. With the amount of heroes you can play, There is a ton of different villains, and you throw in an environment as well. So the combinations, again, we talked about this with Dominion, the combinations of different setups that you can do. You have to choose 3, 4, or 5 heroes to play against the villain. Now, how does the villain adjust based upon how many heroes you use? Well, it's very simple. They have an H mechanism where some heroes might say it's going to do H minus 1 damage to you. Well, H is how many heroes you have. If you put 4 heroes in the game, then it's 4 minus 1 is 3 damage. If you put 5 heroes in the game, it would be H, which is 5, minus 1, which is 4. So the game will know and compensate for how much damage you can do, or the villain will do to their players based upon how many heroes they play against them. So again, you have to play with 3, 4, 5, which I play solo with 4 players or 4 characters all the time. I mean, it's my standard go-to. I play 4 characters against the villain, which I think, in my opinion, and I've played this game, I've played it 10 times with the Enhanced Edition, is what you see here is the Enhanced Edition, and then I played it 11 times with the Definitive Edition. So I played it over 20 times in the 2 editions combined. Now there is some differences which I'll talk about here in a minute, but it is it's all about. I play 4 heroes against the villain in a random environment, and they do have this nice structured mechanism where they will tell you how difficult a hero is to play, how difficult a villain is to play against, and how difficult the environment is to play against. So you can really fine-tune your difficulty based upon what villain you're going up against, which heroes you're taking, and which environment you're taking. If you want an easier match, you get some of the really powerful heroes against one of the weaker villains, like Baron Blade. And then you use one of the really easy environments, and you have a really easy match. It's easy to teach players how to play this game. It's literally this. You sit down at the table. Nobody knows how to play Sentinels in the Multiverse except for me. And I tell everyone at the table, you draw 4 cards. That's your, shuffle your deck. Draw 4 cards. That's your starting hand. All right, everyone got your starting hand? Yes. Okay. Now, when it's your turn, what you're going to do is you're going to play one of those cards on the table. And then you're going to activate one of your powers that's on the table. And then you're going to draw a card, and you're going to do the end of your turn. And that's it. That is as simple as it is. Everyone at the table now knows how to play Sentinels of the Multiverse. I'm done teaching. Let's go to it. That's how simple it is. And that's why it's probably my number one. One of the reasons my number one game is it gives me lots of variability, lots of setup, lots of cool things. But it's so simple to teach and learn to play this game. Everyone out there, again, play a card. Any card in your hand, pick one, play it, boom, done. Okay, activate a power. Well, my guy only has a power. I guess I'll activate this. Right, now draw a card, boom, your turn's done. Moving on to the next guy. That's how simple it is. It is the simplest game to teach. It's the simplest game to play. Now, there's a lot of strategy, right? So which cards to play and how to play them and all that. Yes, there is a lot of strategy in this game and what you can do with this game, okay? So I'm not saying it's a simple game. It's a simple game to learn and teach. It's not a simple game to play, right? It is a lot more complex. What does this character do? How does he do things? And that's the cool thing I like about Sentinels over Marvel Champions at this point, is because each of the heroes does a thing. Legacy, which is the character in the middle there, the white guy that's standing there, he is kind of, think of him as Superman. He is like the really tough support character that energizes and helps his allies. That's what he does. That's his goal. He puts out cards to help prevent other people from taking damage, redirecting damage to him because he's the big tough guy, and then giving them a chance to get different buffs to make them stronger, right? Then you have the lady that's next to him that's flashing across the screen, right? And she has a super speed. She's like the Flash. She does like super cool things. Her whole mechanism is discarding cards into her discard pile over and over and over again all this time. And then she has like a couple cards that every card that's in her discard pile, count them up, she does 1 point of damage for every single card. So if you have 12 cards in your discard pile, you're doing 12 damage. Holy cow, that is so cool. So every hero does its thing and has its own mechanism and works its own special way. Bunker, which is the guy over on the right-hand side, the guy with the big cannon and stuff, he's all about getting out all of his super big weapons and then activating them in turret mode and shooting all of his guns and doing all of his rocket launchers and his omni cannon and just blowing everything up this way. You can see he's like a big mech guy, right? So every character does its own thing and has its own deck and plays its own way, and you kind of learn and study how they play, and you study what they can do and what they can't do and how do they do things and how they interact with one another. And that is taken away from me in Marvel Champions, because in Marvel Champions, I could have a deck that does one thing with Doctor Strange, and I can have a completely different deck that does completely something else. And I can have a completely other deck that does something else. So, there's advantages and disadvantages to both systems. But for me, where I'm at and what I enjoy, I like learning the characters and understanding what the characters can do and learning about them, and then just experiencing these characters and playing them several times and understanding how they play. There's Absolute Zero, who is a character that you have to energize himself by damaging himself, and then he can redirect that damage to another enemy. And then he's got other cards that once he gets those cards in play, instead of damaging himself, he will heal himself. So, it's all about, learning these cool combinations that were built into these character decks and built into how these characters play. Now, I mentioned this earlier, but the Sentinels of the Multiverse has expanded into a definitive edition, which started coming out in 2022. And basically what they did was they took everything in Sentinels of the Multiverse, and they redesigned all the characters, and they redesigned all the villains, and they re-released them with new special powers and new cards and new way of doing things, and they kind of fine-tune the whole system. So I would recommend at this point, if you're new to Sentinels of the Multiverse, you track down the definitive edition. Although there is only 2 games, there is the base core game of the definitive edition, and there is Rook City. So here's Rook City. This is the definitive edition of Rook City. And this is the definitive edition of Sentinels of the Multiverse. These are the 2 packages that, if you don't own Sentinels of the Multiverse, I would highly, highly, highly recommend you get and play. If you want to just try Sentinels, but you don't want to spend a lot of money, because those 2 boxes are like $100. I mean, it's not a cheap game, I'll say that. But if you want to try a cheap game, you can get Sentinels of the Multiverse, the edition that you see up here, for around $10 to $12. It's very, very cheap, and you can get all the expansions for anywhere between $7 to $12 to $15. All of the enhanced edition is kind of what I'm calling, a lot of people have just upgraded to the definitive edition, because the definitive edition have revamped how everybody works and supposed to make the game more fun, make it more interesting, make it more balanced, make it really, you've taken a great pumpkin pie, right? And now in definitive edition, they've added whipped cream and a cherry on top of your pumpkin pie. I would still say, in my hearts of hearts, like I still like the original Sentinels of the Multiverse slightly better than the newer version, and that is a discussion for another day. Both editions, while different, do play differently, and that, again, that's a discussion for a different day. So you can't go wrong with either edition, but you might like one more than the other. So I would try the enhanced edition. You can get, again, for $10, $12, $13, very cheap, or get the definitive edition, which is going to be around $40, $45, $50 for the enhanced edition. And it's going to be a lot more meatier, but you might see more with here. I will quickly, and I swear I will go over this quickly because we've been going for 2 hours already, and I didn't want to go over that long. All right, so I got to go quick. But here's my 10 seconds on the difference of the editions. But this is really a 2-hour discussion. Okay, it really is. The enhanced edition, which is the version up there, which is the old edition, was designed to be very quick, easy to play, which I already talked about. Play a card, play a power, draw a card. Very simple, quick, and easy. Boom, boom, boom. Done. Right? And that's what it did great. And everyone loved it for that, and everyone appreciated it for that. And then they decided to fine-tune it and make it better and make it funner and make it everything. And so the definitive edition comes out, and what the definitive edition does is it gives everyone kind of their powers on steroids. So now you're playing a power, but this power might be to play 2 more cards. So you're playing a card, and then that card's allowing you to play 2 more cards, and one of the cards you play is going to let your ally play a power. And so there's this huge cascading going on of, I'm doing this, you can draw a card, and then you can play a power, and then I get to activate a power, and my power is to draw a card and play it if I get to play it, and this card allows me, the card I drew allows me to play another card, so I'm going to play this card and then get to, so you've got this whole cascading events of getting everything and making it very interactive, and you're doing a lot more than you used to do in the enhanced edition. Okay, so in definitive edition there's a lot more going on. You get to do a lot more. You might be playing 2, 3, 4, 5 cards in one turn in definitive edition. In enhanced edition, you'll be lucky to play 2 cards. Most characters, which makes things slow, right? Because I'm playing 1 card, okay, and then next I have to wait till next turn, and I'm only playing 1 card, okay, and then I've got to wait another turn. And finally, once I got my 3rd card out, maybe I can start doing something. So it's slower. I guess that was the problem, was a lot of people thought it was too slow to get things started. So now with the definitive edition, I'm boom, boom, boom. I'm playing 5 cards. I'm letting you play 2 cards, and I'm letting you activate a power. And that's just one hero. You go to the next hero, he's doing the same thing, and you got this cascading effect. By the end of the first round, you got 8, 10 cards on the play, and everyone's set and ready to go, which takes some of the fun out of the game for me, because it takes all the simplicity out of it and makes it a much more interactive, much more harder game to play solo. It makes it definitive edition is much harder to play solo, because I'm constantly having to go, okay, well, now wait a minute, I've activated this guy, but you were giving him a power, and the card that he played allowed him to play 2 more cards. I can't even remember who started this. Was it your character or this character that started it? And it becomes a big nightmare to play. So that's kind of the differences in the versions. They're both 10 out of 10. They're both awesome. I love the design all the way around. And again, the powers, for me, the most important thing is the power cycle is set. This character deck is set in stone. You can't change out cards. You can't do anything like Marvel Champions. This card, you want to play this character, which makes it part of the fun, is learning the character and knowing what he can do and choosing the right characters to combine together to go to defeat the villain that you're up against. And you know this villain is tough because he's a 5 out of 10. Baron Blade is like a 2 out of 10. Well, if I'm going up against a 5 out of 10, we're going to have to, so there is a great way of fine-tuning your difficultiness for this by based upon choosing the environment you're playing, the heroes you're playing, and the villain you're playing, and choosing the right setup for that. If you want to play, you want to teach this game to new people, you want an easy, you're going up against an easy boss with an easy environment, everyone's going to have a good time, you're going to win, and but you're going to learn the cards and you're going to play. You played it 100 times, you're now going, okay, let's find the toughest fight we can do. We're going to take the wimpiest heroes against the tougher villains. Oh, that's too tough. We lost. So we're going to have to try maybe an easier environment with this villain. I've lost. That's my number one. Sentinels of the Multiverse. It was number one last year. It took over Dominion, which was number one in 2023. I can't remember what this was in 2023. It was probably in the top 10 or so. But it was number one last year. It's number one this year. I don't foresee, again, because of the variability, the amount of content, the amount of characters, Sentinels of the Multiverse, Marvel Champions, based upon what your thoughts are and what kind of game you're looking for. Either one of those games are great. They can go either 1, 2, any way. But for me, in my thoughts and what I enjoy, Sentinel Multiverse, because it doesn't have that the LCG system at all. None of that crap is in here. Sentinels of the Multiverse is much better. All right. So that is my top 100 games of all time. I knew this episode was going to run long because there's a lot to talk about when you're talking about the top 20 games of all time, especially in the top 4 or 5 games. You really want to talk about these games. And I could talk about Sentinels of the Multiverse, Marvel Champions, or any of these top 20 games all the time. I would play any of those. In fact, let's go over them again if you're just joining us. Number 1, Sentinels of the Multiverse. Number 2, Marvel Champions. Number 3, Wingspan. Number 4, Arc Nova. Number 5, Cartographers. Number 6, Aeon. Number 7, Australia. Hidden Gem, I think. Number 8, Spirit Island. Number 9, Combat Commander, my number 1 war game of all time. Number 10, Dominion. It keeps falling a little bit, but it's still one of the best of the best. Number 11, Arkham Horror. Number 12, Final Girl. Number 13, Bullet's Heart or Bullet Star, or both of them. Number 14, my number 1 sports game title, Bout 2. Number 15, Dune Imperium, without the expansions. Number 16, Arkham Horror, the card game. Number 17, Twilight Struggle. Number 18, The Forest of Aeon. Anything in the Hex Explorit system, whether it's this one or the first season, second season, whatever. Number 19 is Marvel United. And number 20, Gaia Project. Thanks so much for everyone who posted comments, questions. Like to see a game made from the old DC premise of multiple Earths. Yeah, that would be cool. The Marvel Multiverse was a cosmic reworking of the DC multi-Earths. I really wish that I held on to the Justice League of America comic that featured characters from Earth 1, 2, and 3. All right. Dale Brady, what's going on? Viper Dave, how's everyone doing? Tim Zales, great list. Lots of fun games there. Thanks, buddy. So that's my list 2025. It might change, and I'm sure it'll change in 2026. We had a lot of changes this year. We had 2 brand new games in the top 20, Explorit and Marvel United. We had a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. We had 20. We had 20% brand new games to the list this year, which means in 2024, I came across 20 games that were top 100 of all time material. All the way from PentaQuest to Lords of Waterdeep to The Red Cathedral, Wolfpack, Skies Above the Reich, Resist, Raising Robots, Alter Quest, Concordia, Apiary. I mean, so many good games. And I'm sure in 2025, I'm going to come up with another 10 to 20 games. So some of these games are going to be bumped off next year. And I love all these games. I absolutely love every one of these games that is on my top 100. I mean, probably the top 200 games. I could do a top 200 games without any problem. Because I got so many 9s and 10s. Like anything in the top 20 is definitely a 10 out of 10. Like I can't see anything being not a 10 out of 10 in the top 20. And then from 21 to like 81 is like 9 out of 10. And then like 80 to 100 might be 8s and 9s out of 10. I don't know. I mean, if I had to rate some of these games, Target for Today is, I rated that. That's like a 90, 92, 94% game. I mean, it varies. It depends on what's going on, all that. But there it is. It's been way longer than I wanted to go for today. My number one is number one again. Number two is new. And, yeah, I'm glad it's over though. I'm this 100 game list. I wanted to get it done and over with, and I am very happy it is. So, thanks to everyone for coming through and watching. Do appreciate it. Hit that like button, subscribe, do all that fun stuff, and we'll see you next time. Whew, it's over. Let's go on. Let's go on to the next top 1,000 next year. Top 1,000. All right, guys, we'll see you next time. Until then, don't you forget, I will see you all real soon. Bye for now.